Yeah, you can start, Dr. Ganaraj.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to thank the organizer of this event, Dr. J.R.K. Sharma sir, and my mentor, Dr. Netravati ma'am, for giving me this opportunity to present in this platform. As we are discussing one drug every week, and the drug we have taken for discussion for this week is fingolimod. So we will be discussing mainly on three parts. The first part, which will cover the history and the pharmacology of the fingolimod. The second part, the current available, the scientific evidence and the drug trials which are done in fingolimod. And in the third part, we will be discussing on the practical aspect, that is patient selection, indications, contraindications, and their monitoring and switching from one drug to another. And finally, a summary of the fingolimod usage. So fingolimod, it is a sphingosine 1-phosphate receptor modulator, which was initially in the research molecule, it was called as FTY720. And the importance of this drug is, this is the first US FDA approved drug for the oral therapy in the treatment of multiple sclerosis, as it was approved in the year 2020. And it is chemically an phenyl compound with a amino attached to it with a hydrochloride compound. Mainly it is derived from myriosin, which is a metabolite of the fungus, and it is a structural analog for sphingosine. Here we can see the structure of the fingolimod, which is almost similar to sphingosine, which has a phenyl and amino compound attached to it, and its active metabolite is fingolimod phosphate, which is converted with the help of sphingosine kinase. So before coming into it, let us look at a history of the various drugs. Initially in 1994-96, in that time, injectable injections were used mainly in the treatment of multiple sclerosis, and fingolimod, which was approved in the year 2011, was the first oral therapy which is used in the management of multiple sclerosis. It was synthesized way back in 1992, but initially it was synthesized for the management of graft rejection in renal transplantation. That was in 1996, but only in the animal studies they could perform, but in the clinical use it did not show much efficacy. But they have started animal studies in 2003, which was showing some good results, and then they did a clinical trials later, which was approved in the year 2010 in the management of multiple sclerosis. And even in 2011, the European agencies approved this drug for the use in the multiple sclerosis. And currently, from last 2 years, we have a generic form of fingolimod, which is approved already in the United States in the treatment of multiple sclerosis. So, as fingolimod is very similar to sphingolipids. Sphingolipids are nothing but the components of the plasma membrane, which is a bilayer in all eukaryotic cells, and which regulates various range of cell functions that includes from cell differentiation, survival, movement, and angiogenesis, and also inflammation and immunity in the host. And it acts on sphingosine 1-phosphate receptors. That receptors has a various modulatory actions, which includes from lymphocyte recirculation, neurogenesis, neural cell migration, natural killer cell migration, and endothelial cell function, and vasoregulation, and also in the cardiovascular development. This is the slide which shows the mechanism of action of fingolimod, as it converted into fingolimod phosphate with the help of sphingosine kinase, which acts on the sphingosine 1-phosphate receptor, mainly 1, 3, 4, and 5. It does not act on receptor 2, which in turn blocks the capacity of the lymphocytes to egress from the lymph nodes. This can be evidenced with a drop in the lymphocyte count by about 30% and the neutrophil count by 80%, which is seen clinically. This is one of the important mechanism which is postulated to be responsible in the management of multiple sclerosis. So here in this slide, we can see the prodrug, which is fingolimod, which is converted into active form, that is fingolimod phosphate, which acts on various receptors like phosphate type 1, type 2, type 3, type 4, and 5, except type 2, which further acts on the inflammatory process. Here we can see the pathogenesis in multiple sclerosis. that is the priming of T cells by the autoantigens, which in turn leads to generation of memory T cells and effector C cells, and also local reactivation of central memory cells, which in turn leads to release of the lymphocytes from the lymph nodes, which on crossing the blood-brain barrier, which releases various pro-inflammatory cytokines, which in turn damages the myelin by two mechanisms mainly, that is through astrocytes, which leads to scar formation, and also by the microglial cells. What fingolimod does is, it mainly prevents the egress of T cells from the lymph nodes. So these cells are prevented from entering into the central nervous system, which in turn reduces the inflammation. This mechanism is almost similar to natalizumab. So the phenomenon of rebound reactivation, which we will be discussing later, is the hypothesis postulated for this. And this is one more diagram which is showing how the lymphocyte, the cells which are entering the lymph nodes through this sphingosine 1-phosphate receptors are blocked by the fingolimod to prevent the egress or the release of these cells from the lymph nodes. So these are the other minor mechanisms which are postulated to be involved in the CNS inflammation. That is, it impairs the ability of the cytotoxic T cells to kill their target cells by arachidonic pathway. And others are, it acts on the macrophages, cannabinoid receptors, and phospholipase A2 receptors, and also ceramide synthesis inhibitors. But fingolimod can easily cross the blood-brain barrier because it is a highly lipophilic compound. So coming to the pharmacokinetics, its absorption, it takes the Tmax, it takes about 12 to 16 hours, and it has about 93% of bioavailability. The maximum concentration which is achieved is not interfered with the food intake, so it can be taken with regardless to the meal. Though the Tmax is reached by 12 to 16 hours, but to achieve a steady state blood concentration, it takes minimum of 1 to 2 months following the daily administration of this fingolimod. So this steady state level is almost 10-fold greater than the initial dose which we start in the case of multiple sclerosis. Most of the fingolimod and fingolimod phosphate, which is the active form, are bound to the protein about 99.7%. So this drug intake is not altered by whether the patient is having a renal or a hepatic impairment, and it is extensively distributed in the body tissue, and it has almost about 1200 liters of volume distribution. So only in a severe hepatic injury, it has a slight limitation. Otherwise, both in mild to moderate hepatic injury or in the renal injuries, it can be used without much dose reduction. So coming to the metabolism, it is metabolized by mainly three mechanisms. One, by the reversible stereoselective phosphorylation, converting into S-enantiomer, and second, by the oxidative transformation, and third, mainly by the inactive non-polar ceramide analogs. And it has a half-life of about 7 days, which ranges from 6 to 9 days, and the blood levels of fingolimod and decline in parallel with the fingolimod phosphate, and majority of it is excreted in the urine as an inactive metabolite, and only a fraction of it is excreted through the feces. So this is about briefly about the pharmacokinetics and the mechanism of action. And this second part includes mainly the scientific evidences which are available for the use in the fingolimod. It is mainly have divided into two parts, like one which is the pivotal trials, that is the fingolimod is compared with a placebo, and the current all the recent trials are compared with another immunomodulators like interferons, dimethyl fumarate, or a teriflunomide. These are the only three trials which were used with a placebo, that is the Freedoms trial and Freedoms 2 trial and long-term trial. And all others like a transform trial are compared with the interferon, and other trials which will be telling in later are compared with the other immunomodulators like teriflunomide and dimethyl fumarate. So this is the first trial, that is Freedom trial, that is fingolimod research evolution in the efficacy of daily oral therapy in multiple sclerosis. In this study, they had taken about 1,200 patients of multiple sclerosis and they had divided into three groups. One was fingolimod 0.5 mg and second group with fingolimod of 1.25 mg and third group with the use of placebo. And their main endpoint was to look at the ARR, that is annualized relapse rate. And the secondary endpoint was time for disability progression, that is the increase in 1 point of EDSS, which is confirmed after a period of 3 months, irrespective of if the patient is not having any clinical evidence of relapses. Means the disability progression should not be attributed to the relapse at that point of time. So these were the three main parameters which they had used. One was on the annualized relapse rate and the disability progression and the inflammation in the CNS, which is measured with the help of MRI. So compared to the various doses of fingolimod with a placebo, the ARR for fingolimod was very less. It was 0.16 to 0.18 compared to a placebo, and the probability of disability progression was also less compared to placebo. And here in this graph, we can see there was significant lower lesions in the MRI of these patients compared to those with placebo. So the result of this trial was, compared to placebo, both the doses of the fingolimod had lowered the relapse rate and the risk of disability progression and the lesions on MRI. However, there was few safety concerns in the Freedoms 1 trial. That was because few patients had cardiac side effects and few had developed macular edema and hypertension. So when they had applied for FDA for the approval, they wanted few more safety data. So for that reason, they had continued with the Freedoms 2 trial. In this also, they had made it as a three groups of the similar like first one and with the endpoint. Here, along with the previous the endpoints which they had considered, they had also considered for the percentage of brain volume changes along with the side effects profile. And here also the annualized relapse rate was about 50% low compared to those with the placebo. And there was a very minimal change in the brain volume compared to those with the placebo use. However, there was no significant difference in the group difference with the disability progression. So this trial had shown a better safety profile in fingolimod and also in the reduced relapse rate compared to those using the placebo. This is another trial called as Transforms, which is a trial which is assessing the interferons injectable along with fingolimod in a case of RRMS. Here they had used two groups of 0.5 mg fingolimod and 1.5 mg fingolimod as a second arm. And in the third arm, instead of placebo, they had used interferon alpha. The endpoints were the same. Primary endpoint was ARR and the secondary endpoint was time to disability progression and the number of lesions on the MRI. So here also the similar results were there. Their main conclusion was both fingolimod groups had a significantly greater reduction in the ARR compared to the interferon group, and both fingolimod groups had a significantly few lesions or a very few lesions in the MRI at the end of 1 year. And there was no significant difference in the time to the progression of disability. So their conclusion with this trial was they had a superior efficacy of oral fingolimod over injectable interferon alpha. As a oral treatment, it was highly desirable to improve the patient's convenience and to diminish the side effects and also to improve the compliance. And later they had done with another oral agent, that is dimethyl fumarate. Here their main endpoint was to look at the NEDA, means the number of relapses, the disability progression and the activity in the brain MRI. Here they had made two groups. One, the patient who were started as a fingolimod or a dimethyl fumarate as the names multiple sclerosis patient. In the another group who are the switchers, that is previously they were on injectable agents who were switched to oral agents. In that one they had taken either fingolimod or a dimethyl fumarate. So they had compared all the three activities. One, the number of relapses, the second as a disability worsening, and the brain imaging activities in the brain MRI. Among these three components, those who have started as a first oral agent, whether it was a fingolimod or a dimethyl fumarate, they both had a equal proportion of effectiveness. However, those who were on injectable interferons initially later switched to oral agent, either whether it was a fingolimod or a dimethyl fumarate. Fingolimod had a greater efficacy compared to dimethyl fumarate. So this is one more trial, which is one of the longest trial, but in this one, which was published in ICTRIMS actually, they had assessed all the patients who were on this fingolimod for a period of up to 10 years. And their main outcome was to assess the ARR and the time to disability progression and the number of lesions. Over a period of these 10 years, almost 95% of the patients had completed their study, and ARR was very less. It was ranging from 0.26 to 0.18 over a period of 10 years. And even the side effect profile was also uh, very less side effects they had. Most commonly, the upper respiratory tract infection or a headache or lymphopenia or fatigue. And severe adverse effects noticed were either MS relapses or a basal cell carcinoma or pneumonia or urinary tract infection. This they had observed over a period of 10 years. And later there was one Cochrane review which they had analyzed all the 6 trials, which was including both freedoms and transfers trial and other phase 2 and phase 3 trials. Out of these 6 trials, they had were having a different follow-up duration of few with 6 months, few with 12 months, and few with 24 months. So their main, the conclusion from their review was the fingolimod had a good efficacy, that is the annualized relapse rate was very less compared to the intramuscular interferons, and even it was effective in reducing the inflammatory disease activity in the brain, and also very limited or a very no difference in preventing the disability worsening. So in this trial, they have shown that 0.5 mg was beneficial, and also the fingolimod was more efficacious in preventing the disability progression and also in reducing the brain activity. So this was about the clinical trials. Now this is the third part, that is practical usage of fingolimod in daily usage and its administration. So based on these trials, the current recommended dose is 0.5 mg once daily, and even in the previous trials, they have noticed that even if the dose, if it is more than 0.5 mg, was not associated with any greater benefit, but had a more adverse reaction. And in the pharmacokinetics, we had seen it can be taken either with or without food, though. So food does not interact with the absorption. So for selecting patients for use of multiple fingolimod in multiple sclerosis, USA, that FDA had approved it as a first line use in a patients of relapsing form of multiple sclerosis. However, in the European Union, they had recommended it for the highly active RRMS patients. So highly active, they have defined as a one, those who have failed to respond the full and adequate course of beta interferons, or those who are rapidly evolving and severe relapsing forms of RRMS, that is defined by 2 or more disabling relapses in a period of 1 year. Other than this, the patient compliance also can lead to selection of fingolimod, like those who are having a injection site reactions for or uncontrolled side effects with injectable DMTs, like a flu-like symptoms, or those who are on natalizumab who have come JCV positive, antibody positive, can be selected for fingolimod usage. However, these are the safety monitoring which were needed before starting the fingolimod, that is the complete blood count and liver function test and pre-screening for varicella zoster immunity and ophthalmological evaluation for macular edema and ECG. These were recommended mainly based on the previous trials. In that one, which they had noticed these side effects, like those with low cell count or altered liver enzymes or having a varicella infection, or patients developing macular edema, or patients having ECG changes. So we'll see one by one. Baseline CBC, it should be there before starting the fingolimod, or it should be available in the, which was done in the last 6 months before fingolimod use. Why? Because the, as we have seen, it fingolimod prevents the release of these lymphocytes from the lymph nodes, so they will have leukopenia. If the patient has a baseline leukopenia, which further increases the risk of serious infections. So if the patient has a leukopenia, either because of the previous immunomodulator use, so it is advised to withhold the treatment of starting fingolimod for a minimum of 2 weeks, and again repeat the counts just before starting the fingolimod use. And normally it is recommended that the absolute lymphocyte count should be in the range of 200 to 800 per microliter. The second part is measuring the liver enzymes, both the liver enzymes and the total bilirubin. It should be available just before starting fingolimod or within the last 6 months of fingolimod initiation. If the patient has elevated liver enzymes, again to withhold the treatment before initiating is the recommended option. Coming to the third one, that is ophthalmological evaluation. Now, if the patient has uveitis on screening, they are having an increased risk of macular edema. So if the macular edema is found either before or associated uveitis or before or during the course of treatment, and it is generally advised to discontinue the fingolimod use. And if the patient is a diabetic, it increases the risk of having a macular edema during the follow-up when the patient is using fingolimod. And even in the previous trials, they had observed that many patients who were on fingolimod had developed this varicella infection. So before starting, patient is having, whether he is immunized for varicella is an important component. So it has to be documented whether the patient had a previous varicella exposure, or a serology testing by measuring the varicella immunoglobulin, which confirms the immune status of the patient. If the patient is not immunized, it is advised to have a varicella vaccination, which is a live attenuated virus vaccine. So if the fingolimod is being started now, means patient should have received the first dose about 2 months prior, and the second dose, booster dose of immunization, that is 1 month prior. So it is advised to have a varicella vaccination before starting this medicine. These are the contraindications where the fingolimod use is not advised. That is, if the patient has MI or unstable angina or a stroke, TIA, or a decompensated heart failure, which is requiring hospitalization in the last 6 months. Or if the patient has a baseline change in the ECG in the form either a second degree or a third degree AV block or a sixth sinus syndrome, and it is a contraindication, even if the patient has prolonged QT interval. If the QT interval is prolonged, patient will have a bradycardia, and which the fingolimod will worsen the bradycardia, so it is contraindicated. Along with if the patient is on cardiac medications, mainly antiarrhythmic medications, this use of fingolimod is contraindicated. So before starting the first dose, and it is advised to have a monitor, means to monitor the patient for the first 24 hours. But it is mainly in the first 6 hours, they have to be monitored with the baseline ECG and ECG at the end of 6 hours. And in between, hourly, the pulse and the BP has to be checked. In few patients, it is advisable to extend this observation for beyond 6 hours, especially those who had a heart rate of less than 45 beats per minute at the end of 6 hours, or if the the hourly pulse rate is showing in the declining range at the end of 6 hours, that suggests that the maximum pharmacodynamic effect of the still has not achieved. Or if the ECG, which is done at the end of 6 hours, shows a new onset second degree or a heart block at the end of 6 hours, they are advisable to have extended observation up to 24 hours. This bradycardia can last up to 2 to 4 weeks after the initiation of therapy, and after that normally the heart rate begins to return to the baseline. In few patients, we should be very cautious for using these medicines, especially those who are hypertensive. Like in those patients, the use of beta blockers and heart lowering agents or a heart rate lowering agents or a calcium channel blocker, we should be careful while using this medication because of the additive effect. Even in the diabetics, as we already saw, these patients are more prone for macular edema. In one study, they had noticed in a patient with and without diabetes, the patients with diabetes had up to 30% of patients had developed macular edema, compared to non-diabetics who had developed only in about 0.3 to 0.4% of the patient. Because this sphingosine phosphate receptor present on the airway also, we should be careful while using these medications in the asthmatics. And even in the women with a childbearing potential, in the animal studies have shown the presence of some cardiac abnormality in the neonates, especially with the persistent truncus arteriosus and ventricular septal defect after the fingolimod administration. And these were the common side effects which are seen with the use of fingolimod, most commonly seen as a headache or influenza-like illness. And few patients can also have diarrhea, back pain, or elevated liver enzymes, or a cough. And very few patients, that is less than 1% of the patients, can have severe cardiac effects like bradyarrhythmia or AV block, or infections, or macular edema, or respiratory effects, or cardiac effects. Hepatic effects mainly because of elevated liver enzymes. So the management of these adverse effects into two parts. One is in the acute setting in the first 24 hours, and second part during the follow-up. In the first 24 hours, if the patient has any signs of reduced heart rate of less than 45, it is advisable to monitor up to 24 hours. If the patient is symptomatic with bradycardia and they have advised to start appropriate management, exact medications they have not mentioned, but most of the people have given their expert recommendation that sometimes using atropine also can have a beneficial effect in bringing the heart rate up. Some patients requiring pharmacological treatment are advisable for admission in the medical facility for a continuous ECG monitoring. If the patient is symptomatic for the first dose, and it is advisable to have a monitoring even for the second dose of fingolimod. During the follow-up, and it is advisable to have monitoring of complete blood count once in 3 months and liver enzymes, they are normally 1 to 2 months, and ophthalmological evaluation. Most of the patients have developed features of this macular edema, either with or without symptoms, by the end of 3 to 4 months of starting this fingolimod. So what we do if the patient has missed a dose? If the patient has missed more than 1 day of this dose in the first 2 weeks of initiation, again this first dose regimen has to be followed. That is the baseline ECG, monitoring heart rate and blood pressure, and again ECG at the end of 6 hours. If the patient has missed for more than 7 days in a period of 3 to 4 weeks after initiation, it is advisable to have a repeat the first dose regimen. And in a patient who has taken fingolimod for more than 1 month, then if he has missed for more than 14 days, again this first dose regimen has to be repeated. So in specific populations, in pregnancy, so as we already discussed, it can have a effect on the fetus. So it should not be used in a pregnant woman or in a woman who are in a childbearing age group and who are not having a effective contraception. And normally the wash off period for fingolimod is approximately 2 months, and as we discussed in the basic pharmacology, and they are advised to have effective contraception during that period. And if they are considering for pregnancy, planning for pregnancy, and they should be counseled regarding the chances of severe worsening during the fingolimod when the fingolimod is taken. And the breastfeeding is contraindicated, and those women who are receiving fingolimod. In specific populations like those who are having a hepatic impairment or renal impairment, in case of mild to moderate hepatic impairment, dose adjustment is not required. In case of severe impairment, and it should be monitored, especially after starting fingolimod. If the liver enzymes increases more than 3 times the upper normal limit, or bilirubin increases more than 2 times the upper normal limit, it is advisable to interrupt the treatment and permanently discontinue the treatment. If the patient has a renal impairment, these patients it does not require any dose modification, but it has to be used with a caution. So these are the few expert comments which they had used while shifting from one immunomodulator to another. If the patient is a treatment naive multiple sclerosis or who was previously on interferon or glatiramer, if we are shifting for a fingolimod, it can be started immediately or within 1 month. Specifically, we have to look for the total counts because these medications can have a reduced total counts. So if the total counts are within normal range, it can be started. If the patient is on dimethyl fumarate, again the monitoring is only total count specifically because DMF also can cause leukopenia. If the patient is on teriflunomide and we are shifting to fingolimod, normally it takes more than 1 month for the washout period, and it is advisable to have a washout by cholestyramine and again to measure the total counts. While shifting from natalizumab to fingolimod, and normally it takes about 4 to 6 weeks for the washout period, and it is advisable to have a CSF and MRI at the baseline and at the end of 6 months to rule out any possibility of PML. If any other drugs, if the patient is on like azathioprine, normally washout period takes about 3 to 6 months, and before starting fingolimod, the patient is on azathioprine, it is advisable to measure the total counts because azathioprine can also cause reduced total counts. Now, switching to other drugs from fingolimod. So the washout period for fingolimod is about 2 months. So during this period, because total count is also low, so it is advisable to have a monitoring for infection throughout this period. Because the action of this medicine is similar to like that of natalizumab, it prevents the entry of the cell into the CNS. Once the fingolimod is stopped, they can have increased this lymphocyte penetration into the CNS that can cause a rebound phenomenon. So once the patient is on off fingolimod, we should be very cautious and monitoring for the features of rebound phenomenon, especially when it is stopped if the patient is planning for pregnancy. Now, the use of vaccination in these patients with fingolimod. The one study which was the review which they had published in the Nature, they had mentioned that if the patient is on fingolimod, if they are using a vaccine which is either a vector or a mRNA COVID vaccine, normally immunosuppressants, they may diminish the therapeutic effect of the COVID-19 vaccine, though they had not specifically mentioned about this inactivated vaccine, but previously they had used influenza vaccine in patients with fingolimod about 10 years back. In that study also they had noticed the immunogenicity is very mild compared to those with a normal population. So they should be very careful even if they are vaccinated for the COVID-19. And there are few guidelines for using fingolimod. The AAN recommends prescribing fingolimod in patients with multiple sclerosis, highly active MS as a first line agent. And if we are switching from natalizumab to fingolimod, and it should initiate treatment within 8 to 12 weeks, that is from 2 to 3 months. This is because of the phenomenon of that rebound phenomenon which we discussed before, and this time is taken for the total count to come normal. Otherwise, if we start earlier, means Patient is already on leukopenia, and if we start on fingolimod, it further worsens the total count and it can have a precipitation for the infection chances. This was on the NICE guidelines. They recommend use of this fingolimod, especially if the patient has 2 or more disabling relapses in the last 1 year, or if the patient has developed new gadolinium enhancing lesions in the brain MRI with a significant increase in the lesion load compared to the previous MRI. Even European Union also has recommended use of this fingolimod, especially if the patient has failed to respond to the full and adequate dose of beta interferons, and if the patient had at least 1 relapse in the previous year. Even the Multiple Sclerosis Society, which is in the Canada, they also have recommended, they have mentioned it as a fingolimod is generally recommended in patients with MS who had an inadequate response or unable to tolerate or had tried with 1 or more therapies for the multiple sclerosis. And this is the treatment plan while starting fingolimod. So first we have to look at the indications for which the fingolimod is needed for the patient. Before that, you have to check the patient history, examination, MRI, lab mainly to look for the lymphocyte count and for the pregnancy, because it is not advisable to choose fingolimod if the patient is planning for pregnancy, and look for the vaccinations and the blood pressure, ECG and ophthalmological evaluation to rule out macular edema. And if the patient is a candidate for fingolimod, then the first dose monitoring, especially in the first 6 hours by baseline ECG and again at the end of 6 hours. In between, hourly we have to monitor blood pressure and heart rate. If the patient is symptomatic or the heart rate is less than 45, it is advisable to have extended monitoring up to 24 hours. Then during the follow-up, again have a lab investigation at the end of 1 month, and 3 months follow clinical neurological examination with the ophthalmological examination to look for the macular edema, which is most common by 3 to 4 months after starting the treatment. Again, at the end of 6 months for the clinical follow-up with the lab investigations to look for the reduction in the total count and the blood pressure monitoring, and with the regular follow-up to look for any features of relapse or disability progression or the inflammation in the brain MRI. Even in NIMANS, in multiple sclerosis cohort, about 2 patients are there who have received fingolimod for more than 1.5 years, and they in this course are not having any clinical relapses. So to summarize, so 1 capsule, that is 0.5 milligram, is taken by mouth once a day, either with or without food. And first dose application and follow-up is essential to guarantee the patient safety and to prevent the possible adverse effects. And no dose adjustment is required either in mild to severe renal impairment and even in the mild to moderate liver impairment. And it is contraindicated in patients of severe liver impairment, and severe adverse effects are very rare, and common adverse effects are manageable in the clinical practice quite well. Thank you.
Dr. Dhanaraj.